The Jungle Kingdom. The jungle was alive with sound. From the first light of dawn, parrots squawked in the treetops, monkeys leapt from branch to branch, and deer moved carefully across the grassy meadows. But no matter how busy or loud the forest became, there was always one creature whose presence ruled above all: the lion, king of the jungle. His name was Azar, and he was not just any lion. His golden mane glistened like fire under the sun. His muscles rippled with strength, and his eyes carried the weight of both wisdom and power. When he roared, the very ground trembled, and every creature, from the smallest insect to the largest elephant, paused in respect. For Azar, life was predictable. He hunted when he wished, rested when he pleased, and commanded respect wherever he walked. He was feared, admired, and envied in equal measure. Yet in the shadow of his greatness lived thousands of small creatures, barely noticed by him. Creatures like the rat, the world of the rat. Not far from the lion's resting place, hidden under the roots of a tall fig tree, lived a rat named Rafik. Compared to Azar, Rafik was tiny, his body small enough to slip through the cracks of tree bark, his paws delicate, his whiskers twitching nervously at every sound. Rafik lived with his large family in a narrow burrow. To him, survival was not about strength, but about quick thinking and agility. Every day was a test. He had to avoid hawks swooping from above, snakes slithering in the grass, and even the careless footsteps of deer and elephants. But Rafik was not ordinary either. He was curious, bold, and had dreams much bigger than his size. While other rats were content to gather grains, he would often look up at the sky and wonder what it meant to live a life of courage. He admired the lion from afar, not for his strength, but for the respect he commanded. Little did Rafik know, fate would soon weave his life with the king of the jungle in a way no one could have imagined. The unexpected encounter. One blazing afternoon, when most animals rested in the shade, Rafik scurried out in search of food. He darted across the forest floor, sniffing for seeds and fallen fruits. His tiny paws carried him farther than usual, and soon he found himself near a large rock. What Rafik didn't realize was that this rock was not just a rock. It was Azar's resting place. The mighty lion lay stretched out in the sun, his chest rising and falling in deep sleep. Curiosity got the better of Rafik. He crept closer, fascinated by the sight of the lion's enormous paws, each one larger than his whole body. In his excitement, he scrambled onto the lion's mane, running across it like a playground. But then, with a sudden movement, Azar's paw swiped through the air. His eyes opened, sharp and blazing. In one swift motion, his claws pinned Rafik to the ground. "Who dares disturb my sleep?" the lion thundered, his voice echoing through the jungle. Rafik's heart raced. His small body trembled under the weight of the lion's paw. Forgive me, O king," he squeaked. "I did not mean to wake you. I was only passing by." Azar narrowed his eyes. "A rat? So small, yet so bold. Why should I not crush you this instant for your foolishness?" "Mercy." Rafik swallowed his fear. "Because, my lord, one day perhaps I may help you." The jungle seemed to fall silent at his words. For a moment, Azar simply stared at the trembling creature beneath him, then let out a deep, rolling laugh. "You help me? You are no bigger than my claw!" What could a creature like you ever do for the king of the jungle? But there was something about the rat's courage, his willingness to speak, despite his fear, that stirred something in the lion's heart. Slowly, Azar lifted his paw. "Go," he said. "Your words amuse me. I will spare you today. But remember, little one, strength rules this forest, not promises." Rafik bowed his head deeply. "I will not forget your mercy, my lord. One day I shall return the favor." With that, he scurried away, his heart pounding with relief. The lion's capture. Days turned into weeks. The jungle remained as lively as ever, but fate was preparing its twist. One morning, Azar went out to patrol his territory. As he followed the scent of deer, he did not notice the hunters who had entered the forest. These men, armed with ropes and spears, had laid a massive net hidden under dry leaves. The moment Azar stepped onto it, the trap was sprung. The net flew up, entangling him in thick ropes. He roared with fury, shaking the ground. But the more he struggled, the tighter the ropes became. For the first time in his life, the mighty lion was powerless. His roars echoed, but no animal dared approach, afraid of the hunters. Exhausted and humiliated, Azar lay trapped. The king of the jungle was now a prisoner. The rat's courage. Meanwhile, Rafik was out searching for food when he heard the lion's roar, louder, desperate, and unlike anything before. His whiskers twitched. That is not the roar of power, he thought. That is the roar of pain. He followed the sound and soon found Azar entangled in the hunter's net. The sight shook him. The once invincible king now lay helpless. For a moment, fear gripped Rafik. What could a small creature like him do against such a strong net? But then he remembered mercy had spared his life. Now it was his turn to return it. Summoning all his courage, Rafik crept forward. "Do not be afraid, my lord. I am here." Azar, weary and ashamed, opened his eyes. "You? What can you do?" "Leave before the hunter's return." But Rafik shook his head. "No. Today the small will prove that size does not decide worth." With sharp little teeth, he began gnawing at the ropes. Bite after bite, strand after strand, he worked tirelessly. Hours seemed to pass, but he did not stop. Finally, one rope snapped, then another, and another, until at last the mighty lion broke free, the bond forged. Azar rose to his feet, shaking the last of the ropes from his mane. He looked down at Rafik, eyes filled not with mockery but with gratitude. "You have saved me," he said softly. The king of the jungle owes his freedom to a creature he once laughed at. Rafik bowed humbly. "It was your mercy that spared me. Today I returned only what was given." From that day on, Azar and Rafik shared a bond of friendship. The lion learned that even the smallest creature carried great value, and Rafik learned that true courage is not about size, but about heart. Chapter 8, Lessons of the Jungle. The story of the lion and the rat spread throughout the forest. Animals whispered in amazement. If the mighty lion could accept help from a rat, perhaps strength was not the only power worth respecting. The elephant learned to move carefully so as not to crush ants beneath his feet. The eagle learned to admire the sparrow's speed. And the monkeys, once mocking the smaller animals, now shared their food more generously. The jungle had changed, not through war or fear, but through a lesson of kindness and humility. The moral: years passed. Azar grew older, his mane turning silver, but his wisdom grew deeper. He often told young lions, "Do not mistake size for weakness, for sometimes the smallest friend can make the greatest difference." Rafik, too, lived proudly, no longer seen as insignificant. He had shown the world that even the tiniest creature could carry a heart strong, enough to change fate. And so, the jungle thrived, where the mighty lion and the little rat remained friends, bound forever by an act of mercy and courage. Moral of the story: kindness is never wasted. No one is too small to help, and no one is too great to need help. True strength lies not in power, but in humility and compassion.